as we come off the 2024 WWE Draft and the NFL Draft. Cowboys did okay. And we go from the draft right to France for Backlash. And to help me break it all down, joining me live in studio, you read all his stuff on Pro Wrestling Torch, is my good friend Brian Zilem. Brian, how are you, man?
I'm doing fantastic, Stu. Thanks for having me. I'm glad and ready to talk wrestling with you today.
Let's do this. So give me your overall thoughts on the draft. I've heard everything from it wasn't bad to it was boring and lame and why did we bother?
I guess the Cowboys draft was better than the WWE draft, right?
Not bad. At least they addressed some O-line, so that's good.
We got new faces in the building, and I think that's the most overarching thought I have. I guess what was the point? Because nobody okay, well, there's two things. The champion's not changing brands, kind of silly. Don't really understand that. That kind of ruined the at least 5-6% thought that you could say, oh, what if Damian Priest goes to SmackDown? What if Cody Rhodes stays on Raw? Didn't really there a lot of plot holes. Not a fan of drafting groups. Like, could you imagine if the Cowboys could just draft the offensive line from Alabama or Michigan just in one pick? And just a lot of plot holes there. And
Who was it? Was it the Steelers that tried to draft like the whole defensive line from Georgia one year?
Yeah, just about. And Philadelphia's now just drafting any person from Georgia that plays defense. So hey, draft a winner. I don't hate that idea. But just the lack of daisical, it was just blah. There wasn't really any heft to it. I just kind of feel like if anybody in theory can jump around and do whatever they want, why, obviously last year it did really well. This year, not so much. Now, sports competition across the board, whether you're a hockey, NFL fan, or NHL, I think everything's kind of pretty hard right now. So you've got stiff competition. Well, I guess the biggest moves and shakes, you had Damage Control go to Raw, which I guess makes sense because then you've got a potential opponent for two for Becky Lynch, and that was pretty much it. And you had a lot of NXT folks.
Yeah,
come up.
Which that's always kind of heartwarming. You see the so you had from NXT, Carmella Hayes and Blair Davenport going to SmackDown, Kiana James, Ilya Dragunov, Lyra Valkyria, and Dijak going to Raw, and that was always a fun moment to watch.
Yeah,
those are really cool.
I enjoyed that because that was actually a shoot.
Yeah,
because they didn't let them know. I do feel bad for their fellow coworkers that didn't get to call that.
Although Lexus King, of course, also known as Brian Pillman Jr., man, he was like the hype man for every NXT call up. He was loving every moment of that.
Get that man in Chase U right now.
No kidding. I love Brian to death, and he's photobombed me a few times, but that's a whole nother story. You're right. There wasn't a lot of people shifting brands for the most part.
No, because it's just, I think even Michael Cole referenced a couple times on the broadcast last night. Raw has drafted CM Punk, which is, well, you didn't draft him. He's staying.
Yes.
There's really no movement at all. And I know you just mentioned the NXT call-ups. Kind of worried about that. You're kind of picking the NXT roster a little thin, and I'm wondering, with everybody up here now, option A, I guess A, are you going to do anything with them, and then B, are you also taking away some of the best workers, and just because there's not a lot of good hands down there anymore in theory, because you're calling up Lyra. She's obviously improved a lot. Who was the other one? The tax gimmick. she got
Kiana James.
Kiana James, yes, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't call her, Kurt Angle or anything, but I think she's gotten better. I could see why they would want to bring her up. She's tall. She's got a look. That's something obviously they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And then they brought up Blair Davenport for SmackDown.
That was a little surprising to me
because she, if anything, on the heel side, that's another safe hand that you've got down there, and especially in the women's division. So you've got Roxanne, and that's about it because you've got Cora Jade. God bless her, she's coming back from the knee. Nikita Lyons, she wasn't. She's obviously still learning a lot, but she's banged up. So, and then you've got Lola Vice, who's they're high on, but I don't think she's ready to lead a match at all, which I wouldn't ask her to. That seems really unfair. And then you've got Sol Ruka, which I think she's improving, and I think they like. I don't know if she's a ring general, so to speak, but it's very thin down there, and even in the men's division, because you're taking away Braun, Ilya. I know you've got Sean Spears down there now, but are you ready to have Trick Williams lead a match? I guess you kind of have to now.
Yeah, I guess you do. From what I could figure it out, you have Braun Breaker, Damage Control, LWO, and Final Testament going from SmackDown to Raw.
Mm-hmm.
And then from Raw to SmackDown, Andrade, Shinsuke Nakamura, Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, Candice LeRae, and Indy Hartwell, DIY, and Giovanni Vinci, who got booted out of Imperium.
Yes.
Again, not a lot of transfers and not a lot of big names. I mean, Nakamura, maybe, I guess.
Andrade,
I could see that. I guess his name is still pretty lofty, I would say. But the rest of it, mid card at best. We'll see what Braun Breaker can do on the main roster now that he's going to be up there full time.
Right.
But yeah, most everybody else is staying put. You had Braun Strowman, who got drafted to Raw.
There you go.
And then showed up on Raw. And he looks every bit the monster. I think he looks like he's thickened up a little more.
Mm-hmm.
That whole segment with Logan Paul and Patrick Mahomes and everything, that was more than a little confusing because
why were they turning Patrick Mahomes heel in Kansas City? Well, I heard Dave explain it on the Wrestling Observer this morning. So apparently, I didn't even know this. So Mahomes owns a part of Prime, and it's a weird. So they are friends, but
right.
It was really awkward because even with Strowman's interaction with him too, it felt really weird. I
have no idea. It felt weird to me too.
Okay.
Now, I could swear I heard Pat McAfee on his show say something to the effect of Mahomes was actually trying to trick Logan Paul. Now, if that was the case, they didn't include anybody, including Michael Cole or Pat McAfee.
No, and the problem is you've got the biggest babyface in the NFL in that city. That's their Michael Jordan. He is the Michael Jordan of football right now. You're trying to make him a heel, and then throughout all the stuff, you made Jimmy Uso kind of look like a dumb babyface in the process as well. It just kind of very, very counterproductive. And
very.
I'll tell you what, Stu. Cody Rhodes is the straw that stirs the drink on Monday Night Raw, and whew, boy, I'm worried with Cody not on that show.
And I think that's something to call attention to. It's the simple fact you didn't have Rhea Ripley, you didn't have Seth Rollins. You didn't have Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns announced he was withdrawing from the draft, which, okay, sure. But, you had several of your, top stars not even around. And by the way, what about Charlotte Flair?
Yeah.
Last I checked, she's still under contract with WWE. She wasn't in the draft pool either.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they took Rhea out because of injury.
Right.
Although they left Seth Rollins in, even though he's injured.
See, a lot of plot holes.
Yeah.
So just not a huge fan.
They didn't. Nobody's even mentioned Charlotte Flair. They haven't even said her name.
No, I would imagine she will be drafted, or she'll go to SmackDown if, God willing, when she's ready, because Andrade's over there now.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. So, it was, like I said, it was kind of like, They say the rosters lock on May 6th, the Monday after Backlash. Now, look, they have said this after every draft, and then it's like, the pool is, okay, how long before we start seeing, one show's stars on another show? I am now putting the over-under at 4 months.
Whew. I would probably even go shorter than that.
I probably would too, just because SmackDown would be 3 months later, or SummerSlam.
Yeah,
excuse me.
And I know we'll talk Backlash here momentarily, but a lot of WrestleMania lull to WWE since then. It just I don't know if that's on purpose. I think I've seen that as a good faith take, where some people think they're just kind of taking the foot off the gas on purpose. Just they're trying to rebuild stuff, which is sure. I mean, you're not gonna stay molten hot forever. And The Rock's gone, Roman's gone, so Seth is hurt. So you've got a lot of variables in place. That's fine, but Cody seems like he's the connective tissue to everything that makes sense, and I feel, as a fan, there's so many more interesting interactions he could have had potentially with Punk. He's, people he could bump into. Not that I would, want to necessarily see Cody and Seth again, but that's still something they could go back to if they wanted to. Cody and Braun potentially, that would have been, maybe something tasty. Or even if you wanted to do Cody and Gunther, I don't know if that's in the plans down the road, but I just don't really see a lot of interest with Cody on SmackDown right now, because this is only the first title defense, but I'm just getting weird vibes where he's going to have a lot of B programs for a while until they really figure, like you said, they just punt on everything.
I think that, and there is usually at least somewhat of a lull after WrestleMania. That's your biggest show. Everything happens, and then it's kind of like, okay, time to reset. I get that. I also understand they want to, kind of like AEW is doing, they're wanting to build up new stars. They're trying to build people up. Plus, you mentioned the folks that are out because of injury or whatever. That leaves a gaping hole. So it's a matter of let these, let's see what develops. I mean, we are 3 weeks after WrestleMania, so I'm willing personally to give them a little bit longer, just to see what develops.
Give them to SummerSlam,
or at least, when's Money in the Bank? Isn't that in July? That's July in Toronto, right?
I believe so.
I would say at least Money in the Bank.
Okay.
And then let's see what happens. Like you said, Cody is he's the centerpiece.
Yes.
And that's the way that title has, it was meant to be that way. No matter what you hear about the World Heavyweight Championship, that WWE Championship is the centerpiece. And just like Roman Reigns, they want Cody to be the centerpiece there. So I want to see what develops as far as rivalries and everything. Let's see what happens when we get some of these people back, like CM Punk, like Seth Rollins, like Roman Reigns, and let's see what they do. I think it's going to be interesting sledding starting this Saturday with Backlash, and going into the summer as they head towards SummerSlam in Cleveland. I'll be interested to see what stories they can come up with, and they've got some stuff kind of going. You got the new bloodline with Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga. Allegedly, Jacob Fatu is going to be joining soon, or at least he's signed with WWE, and we think he's going to be joining. Mm-hmm. You've got the issues with Judgment Day. We saw it on Monday night where Damian Priest was, he was getting ready to hit the South of Heaven choke slam, and Jamie Bandana got in the way and messed all that up and cost Damian the match. So there's going to be the issues with that, especially now that Rhea Ripley's on the sideline. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try to be patient and see what happens over the next few weeks, and then we'll see from there. Mm-hmm. I mentioned Backlash, as I mentioned, Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central. Be on Peacock, coming to us from the LDLC Arena in Lyon, France. By the way, SmackDown happens the day before, night before, whatever you want to call it, in the very same arena. As of right now, as of Tuesday, April 30th at 7:22 p.m. Central, there are 5 matches. That's it. It's like an NXT. Well, they don't call them takeovers anymore, but an NXT PLE.
Yes,
5 matches.
It's 5 matches and very predictable. I think they're leaning on a hot crowd, which I'm sure this France crowd will love everything going on. I presume that's where we'll get maybe a debuting Jacob Fatu introduced. I guess that will probably be the most interesting thing going on. But yeah, from an interest standpoint, it's just there. I'm sure it might be fine. I don't think there's going to be anything where you need to just sit down and watch it at 12 o'clock on a Saturday Central Standard Time.
I was going to say, it's all right. We're talking the first Saturday in May. You got baseball. You might NBA playoffs. You got maybe NHL playoffs. The UFL will be playing somewhere.
You've got UFC later that night.
That's true.
So it's just, I feel like we're not going to get a lot of touting emails, press releases about this show. Maybe a good gate, maybe, but I feel like the numbers relatively to whatever they tout will be low.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the novelty of having a PLE in France. Yeah. That's going to be the big story. I mean, the 5 matches, Kabuki Warriors defending the women's tag team titles against Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. I think that's going to be our only title change.
Yeah, presumably.
Because they're trying to set this up eventually. You'll have Jade turning on Bianca, and you'll have that rivalry, and that will be a good rivalry
for sure.
You've got Randy Orton, Kevin Owens taking on Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga from the Bloodline. You just mentioned. Just like they debuted Solo Sikoa at Clash at the Castle in Wales, this would be the perfect opportunity to debut Jacob Fatu.
Right.
And that's probably going to be a Bloodline win. Mm-hmm. You got the triple threat match, Bayley defending the WWE Women's Championship against Naomi and Tiffany Stratton. It'll be a fun match. I'm not necessarily think we're going to get 7-star Tokyo Dome or Ospreay and Danielson, but it's going to be fun.
Right.
Bayley's retaining. We're not changing the titles this quickly.
Right.
Damian Priest, Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Whew, I'm worried about this one, Stu.
What worries you?
Quality. I think it'll just be kind of heatless in there. I hope it doesn't go 25. I feel like they might try to make this. And this is really a bad habit across wrestling right now. You don't need to go 20 to 25 minutes. No, that I wish people could realize you can have a nice little 15, 18-minute match and it could potentially be 5 stars. You don't
honestly, I'd be happy with 10.
If this went 10, there's no way. His first title defense, this is probably at minimum going 20 minutes, which is just like, I don't know if the quality's there. There's not really much heat to anything. I mean, Jay's popular. They want to push him as, main event Jay Uso with the, yeet and everything. That's fun, but for me, I mean, I guess that might get him across the finish line because people like to do that. But I think this might be kind of. I'm really worried where they put this, especially if they do this as like a buffer pre Cody and AJ, especially
if I were booking it, I would make this the opener.
They need to,
and I think that's they've been known to do something like that. Look, Damian Priest is a good hand. He knows what he's doing in the ring. There's not going to be. You're not going to look for tactical moves. This is going to be more of a fight.
Right.
I do agree that there is a lack of heat because I really it almost feels like the fans are ready for Damian Priest to leave Judgment Day.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's getting close to that time. I think they can milk it a little longer, but they're going to need to pull that trigger soon.
Yeah, we need to get going.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he's been I guess it's been almost 3 years with the Judgment Day, give or take.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
Because Copeland was still there.
Yeah. And then Cody Rhodes defending the WWE Championship against AJ Styles.
Should be fine.
It should be. The funny thing is, as much as good as he is, I don't know if I buy AJ Styles as a heel. And I know he's overly capable of doing that, going all the way back to Bullet Club days in New Japan. Yeah. But now it's more like the respected veteran.
Yeah, and I think also, Stu, this could just be my headcanon. He's just too big. He's too jacked to be like a kind of a sniveling heel where he was when he had the run with the title before he lost to Cena. I mean, I guess you could always bump him with OC and just try to repackage that magic again. Yeah, he's just kind of there. I'm not really sure what the plan is. Are we worried about Cody's shoulder at all? They on the Observer this morning, I think they said Cody doesn't have an injury, but the double Ozcutter attempt, if you guys didn't see it on Friday.
Yeah, on Friday on SmackDown.
Carmelo, Hayes, and Cody, for some reason, went for a cutter at the same time, and it looked... they both crash and burn pretty much, and Cody was grimacing and holding his shoulder. The reports thus far said he's okay.
I'm hopeful it's a minor injury. They can, if to parlance of the NFL, get a shot at him and have him go. Look. I'm pretty sure they're going to do – we're not going to see a part-time schedule like Roman Reigns, but he's not wrestling every week.
Right.
It's going to be on occasion. I would say it's probably going to be maybe twice a month. I could see that.
That's fine. I don't think I need to see Cody wrestle every week.
So, but yeah, and like I said, I think the only title change – of these 5 matches, I think the women's tag titles will go to Bianca and Jade. So.
Yes.
Anyway, that's Backlash Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central on Peacock from Lyon, France. So have fun with it. It'll be a nice little, couple hours of viewing when you're not watching, May baseball or the UFL or whatever. So as we go into AEW. And I guess we got to start off with what happened last Wednesday on Dynamite towards the end of the show. We saw the teases throughout the show. You saw the Elite and Jack Perry get out of the car, and they head into Tony Khan's office, and they come out of Tony Khan's office. And Alex Marvez, who's one of the best in the world, if you don't follow his NFL stuff, you need to. He's so good. Yeah, he did at one time was doing a show with Gil Brandt, which was fantastic. Okay. And I love Gil to death. But yeah, it was we saw what happened. Jack Perry calls Tony Khan in the ring, says he wants to make amends and wants to, help AEW change the world. Tony Khan hugs him. He gives that evil smile and then punches him in the gut. And then here come the Young Bucks and look like they're going to do a EVP trigger, but no, instead it's the Tony Khan driver. And then everybody comes out, including Shad Khan, who looked like he was ready to kill somebody. And that's how they go off the air on Wednesday. And then Tony Khan got all sorts of play with that neck brace. I watched the NFL Network's coverage of the NFL Draft, and, man, they were loving every shot they would have of the Jaguars' war room there in Jacksonville. And there's Tony Khan front and center with that neck brace. And, of course, the guys talked to him during the Saturday coverage, and then he even pledged to Rich Eisen. So Rich Eisen, the fantastic anchor on NFL Network, does this Run Rich Run fundraiser for St. Jude's Research. And Tony Khan he asked Tony Khan, and Tony Khan has promised when he gets done with the neck brace, he's going to sign it and auction it off with the proceeds going to St. Jude's. So I think that's fantastic. So there's the Cliff Notes version. Go.
What did you think of the bump, first off?
Well, first of all, he fell down. He fell the wrong direction, but that's okay. Hey, look, I've never taken a bump. I'm not now I'm sure Dustin has bugged me. Every time I go to the school, Dustin bugs me to take a bump, and I say, no, Dustin, nobody wants to see a commentator take a bump.
I'll take a bump for you, Dustin.
There you go. All right, we'll make that happen.
Yeah.
But so you see Jack with the microphone in hand hits him in the stomach, and I think Tony was trying to double over and just ended up falling forward. Right?
Yeah, it was somebody sent me a GIF, and it looked very similar. Do you remember when in Toy Story Andy throws down Woody? It just kind of looks similar to that. He just plopped down, and it happened, and the Bucks they plan ahead. They don't just do things on purpose. They obviously renamed the finisher long ago before this happened. Jack Perry, probably the most over he's been. Yeah, right.
I would say probably since the heyday of Jurassic Express.
Yes. But they went through it, and I kind of actually thought Shad Khan coming out and not knowing it was actually a work brother was kind of endearing because maybe I'm, people say I reach Stu, but, the night before, Taz did step away from commentary to take care of his son, Hook. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I thought potentially that was, synergy that they were trying to make sure they were connecting everything with, and and now what happens? The follow through and the follow up is the most important thing.
Yes.
Because now you've gotten a lot of pub all weekend. And Tony went on, I think, with the NFL Network on Friday and had some words.
Boy, did he!
And I guess for me, I just immediately thought of that meme where the pizza's on fire. The guy's coming in with the pizza and everything's on fire. And people did have to kind of remind me, Brian, do you not remember what Vince and Eric were saying in each other back in the 90s? And, it did kind of bring perspective onto everything for me, Stu, for anybody. Now, I will say I'm for mudslinging, but let's not try to use a serious situation as a jab or a vehicle for said mudslinging. Let's try let's punch up. Everybody likes to punch down. Let's try to punch up a little bit if we're trying to, one up somebody. But that did provide perspective, and whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, that those comments did bring a lot of eyeballs and a lot of attention. And then, like you said, I felt like I've seen every draft pick the Jacksonville Jaguars had, they panned to Tony Khan. Because even on the Pat McAfee broadcast on the ESPN side, they said, "Oh, there's Tony Khan." Now they jabbed at him a little bit because they felt like he wasn't selling the neck thing. But say what you want, but I can't recall personally, Stu, this much publicity outside of just a wrestling space since AEW's existed.
Well, it was impeccable timing to do this on the Wednesday before you're about to sit in a war room for 3 days.
Yes.
To draft players for your NFL team.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get, and the camera's going to be on there, ESPN, NFL Network,
ABC.
Yeah. So the timing is impeccable. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The whole thing about Tony not selling it correctly, it's, again,
he's not a wrestler. He shouldn't have to know how to sell it. You're right.
He's not a wrestler. This is it's a little bit, it's a bit of theater of the mind, and the fact he's wearing the neck brace throughout all of this, I think, is a huge step for someone worth as much money as Tony Khan is, and who is the owner of a wrestling promotion.
Right.
So, I'm willing to, look, to not worry about, how, is he keeping it stiff or whatever. It was interesting. So on Collision on Saturday, Tony Schiavone reported that Tony Khan, quote, suffered multiple head and neck injuries, and so he would not be able to travel to run the shows, but he will run all the different shows remotely. That includes Dynamite this week in Winnipeg, which, oh, by the way, it's Dynamite and Rampage tomorrow night on TBS from Winnipeg. Now, Tony Khan won't be in Winnipeg, allegedly. He will be running the show remotely, allegedly. So, like you said, I think, okay, you've had the splash. Now we got to see what happens. And that's going to be, dare I say, more important.
Yes, I agree.
Than the actual what happened. They've got to follow this up correctly, yes. And they can't. If so, my thinking is, we are right at 4 weeks away from Double or Nothing in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of me that says they could do that. Could be. I'm not sure if that would be the blow off, because that feels like it's a little too soon.
Right.
But I wouldn't blame them if that's the case. I could definitely see them carry it. I don't know if you do it Forbidden Door, because that's AEW New Japan, and the focus should be more on that collaboration than Tony Khan's, quote, neck injury.
Right.
So then it's, do you do a pay-per-view in July, or do you just wait until All In London and All Out in Chicago?
Ooh, that's a long time.
And that's a long. I'll be honest. I'm not sure they could carry this out to the end of August.
No, I would say the follow-up tomorrow is going to be very important. And I would say I don't mind if it's short. Just make it make sense, and have it. Just you start it. You started off good. You let off with a double. Now get the runner home. That's all you have. Easier said than done.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, let's not forget who else is going to be in Winnipeg.
That'd be
Kenny by God Omega.
And it's funny because I don't, God willing, we all need Kenny Omega back healthy in the ring. I don't think he's healthy enough to wrestle per se, but he's strongly indicated potentially there might be other things that he could be involved in Winnipeg. So
last I remember, he's an executive vice president too.
Exactly. So I had all these thoughts. I feel like WWE's only really gotten kind of an on-screen general manager right one time. That was with Mick Foley.
True. Now you've got Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce, which apparently means if you want to be a general manager of one of their two shows, you have to be a former NWA world champion.
Yes, exactly. But just in terms of on-air presence, Mick Foley was fantastic. Very, very silly. I feel like Kenny, if he can't wrestle, he has enough charisma, comedic timing to do something to make that funny and entertaining. Now, how does that lead to a blow-off match, a Double or Nothing? I'm not really sure. Now, like you said, this actually might be part one of the follow-up because there might be more to come that following week, because are the Bucks going to jump, or is Jack Perry going to beat down Kenny Omega? And then somebody pointed this out today. Shout out to Michael Sidgwick on What Culture. Tony Khan was punched in the gut. Who has problems with their gut right now? Kenny Omega. The Young Bucks think about stuff they're not Jack the Jobber. Sorry, Jack the Jobber from no, but they're just not just like a random jobber. They think, they're very thoughtful on how they're going to approach something. So I feel like they've had this planned out for a very long time. I believe it was even a month ago. Before WrestleMania, I think Tony and Khan had gone on to say, or maybe it was even on Dynasty or the Dynasty media call, how him and the Young Bucks have thought this out since December of last year. The return with everything with Sting, getting the theme music. They've thought on where they're going to plant each plot of their story very carefully.
Yeah.
Like you said, now not everybody's kind of into elite melodrama. I know everybody kind of got tired of that maybe a little last year with Blackpool Combat Club and Don Callis. So now we're kind of just feuding within, which might be potentially better, but what grouping, how are we going to follow up? God forbid, hopefully that's the only time Tony's ever physical in the ring, please. No more after that. That's your one and done.
Yeah. That's the thing. Everybody's bringing up about how Tony Khan said he would not be an on-screen character. This, I don't know if you call this not. I mean, if it's one time, then fine.
Right.
This does not, like you said, this does not need to become a regular occurrence. As far as a blow-off, I think the obvious first choice is Blood and Guts.
Mm-hmm.
But that means you got to have a I guess it would be a 4-man team on the other side, because I'm going to assume it's going to be Matthew Nicholas, Okada, and Jack Perry. So now you got to get 4 on the other side. Is that Blackpool Combat Club? Doesn't make sense because they're not exactly company guys. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Swerve did mention the Elite and Tony Khan during his promo, just as an option.
That's a possibility, but I think you need to, Swerve needs to be
separated.
Yeah, because he needs to worry about the world title.
Yeah.
So then it's a matter of what 4 guys do you put together? And I think that's where they've got to be. They've got to be careful about who they pick and how they gel together. Whether it's I could easily see Mark Briscoe being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be an obvious first choice.
Garcia.
Yes, I could. That leads me to: do you put FTR? Make it FTR, Danny Garcia, and Mark Briscoe.
Yes,
I think there's your foursome because you've got FTR has the relationship with Mark Briscoe, has the relationship with Danny Garcia, and they're the biggest rivals of the Young Bucks.
Yep, like it.
So I think that might be the way you book it. And again, I don't know if they want to pull the trigger at Double or Nothing, but I think kind of like you, I would like to see it drawn out a little longer, but I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know where is that because if you're going to go past Double or Nothing, you can't go all the way to All In and All Out. So there's got to be a middle point.
Right.
And I don't know where that middle point is. So if there is no middle point, pull the trigger quick.
Right.
Give it less of a chance to mess up.
Could you fit a double cage in? Because Double or Nothing's it's at the MGM Grand, right?
At MGM Grand.
Could they fit a double cage in there? You think?
I think so.
Okay.
Don't they have floor seating anyway?
I
so
believe
take
so.
out some of the floor seating, put 2 rings together.
Yeah. Do you like? I honestly love the combination of 8 rather than 10. Just because I guess how many times have they done this now? They've done 3. I felt like the last one was the best one that they did. I think as far as just how the match was arranged. Obviously, the Young Bucks and Kenny are in there, so they're geniuses. So I'm gonna trust them on the multi-man match over anything. But I do like. I know 4 is not tradition because the tradition is always it's a 5-man group, correct?
Going all the way back to the very first War Games back in the mid '80s.
Yeah, so I don't need necessarily another guy added.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so let's if we're going 4 and 4, let's do that. And I think let that no disrespect to Swerve and whoever he potentially goes against. I think you could have that main event, and it'd be wonderful. Now, could you do? I love Anarchy in the Arena. I was at the first one. I loved it. That was just awesome. I don't even know how to describe it. Just chaotic. It just I think doing that along with Blood and Guts only weeks later just defeats the purpose. I think do one now and save the other one for All In. If you're gonna,
I think that'd be the
because let's pitch this, dude. Now, Tony, I know you listen. You follow me and Stu.
Come on, Tony.
All In. That's where you need to do Anarchy in the Arena. Now, I guess in a way they kind of did that.
Well, with that, I mean, I see. I wouldn't do it in All In just because Wembley's too big. I would do it at All Out. Because now you're back at, I guess you're not at the, what do they call it now? The Now Center?
The Now Center, yes. So I need one or the, because I guess in theory they did do Anarchy in Arena again, because they did 2 last year. They did the one at Double or Nothing with the Bucks. And see, do one of each for the year, and that's it.
Yes.
I think they could easily do Anarchy in the Arena at Wembley, and I think it would be a hoot. I feel like there's.
I mean, that would be That would be fascinating just to see them battle all over Wembley Stadium, but man, that's a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, and then the only other problem is the logistics of getting 2 cages in there. That sounds like a huge pain in the ass, maybe. And it's so close to All Out, which is like
it's a week later. That's why I say just save it for All Out.
I'm okay with that.
Because All In, I think the spectacle of All In a stadium, that's enough of a spectacle.
Yeah.
Save the craziness for an arena, therefore save that for All Out.
Okay, so then so we've decided we need to do Blood and Guts at Double or Nothing, have that main event.
And then Anarchy in the Arena at All Out.
Okay, boom. There you go, Tony.
All right.
We just booked your show.
Yeah, send your checks to us. I'll send you the address. Let's see, a couple other things. So on Dynamite, Will Ospreay wins what they call the Casino Gauntlet match. And so now he's going to challenge Roddy Strong for the international title at Double or Nothing.
Should be great.
Should be a fantastic match. The concept of the Casino Gauntlet match, once it was finally revealed, I thought it was fun.
It ruled.
I think the problem was there was no setup for it. Now, part of that was simple fact you couldn't hear anything. All the audio issues with Dynamite, and Tony blamed TBS on that, which okay, fine. But you could barely hear anything. You could barely hear the commentary.
Right.
I like the concept of having, it's like a Rumble, except that first pinfall in the match, whether you get all the participants in there or not. I think that's fine.
I think as a layout, I think this was one of the exception to the Battle Royal that did a Double or Nothing last year with Orange Cassidy and Swerve. With the international title for the Battle Royal, that one is probably still number 1. But this, as far as a layout, not really knowing the rules, having all the different parties involved. I mean, from all the high flyers and the Archer going in there, and then I hope they run Archer and Will Ospreay back. Were you at that Wrestle Kingdom in Dallas, Stu? Did you go to that show?
It wasn't wrestling. It was G1.
G1.
Yes.
I kick myself every day that I didn't go to that because I watched that.
I was sitting with Cowboy Johnny Mantell. We watched that thing. That was such a it was such a great event for only having like 5,000-6,000 there in the AAC there in Dallas. It was such a wonderful event. Of course, main evented with Okada and Tanahashi, which
great.
Yeah, that was one of those things I never would have even imagined being able to see that live.
Right.
It was fantastic. So, but yeah, I love the concept. I just think they need to lay it out better before the match. That way, everybody understands what's happening.
Now, I've seen a lot of people upset that this doesn't really make sense. Why would Ospreay want to wrestle for a title that's not the world title? To me, there's two. Well, the first and foremost is the old school reason. There's the old JR-ism. You win a title. That's the higher. The more titles you win, the higher
the paycheck is. Yeah.
Pay window, as JR says. The pay window.
Yes.
And 2, potentially this subverts Will from Swerve right now because you don't want them interacting at all right now. And if this gives something for Ospreay to do, where if he ends up going through the Don Callis family again, or if he does, wins Fletcher and Mark Davis back when they're ready, that's a program that they could probably do if the Don Callis family gets something else. The international title, that's something that you could have weekly. And Ospreay is kind of, I know we talked about Cody Rhodes earlier. Well, Ospreay you want to see every week.
Yeah.
So him having that title, defending it for open challenges or doing whatever, having a vast variety of people, it's fine. And you can always, and I know I overthink a lot, Stu, on especially this stuff, but in a way, you can always lose upwards. Intercontinental title with Brett, that's just, and Sean, it just always made sense. So,
well, it's kind of like what you said about matches. You don't have to have a year, 18-month run with a title.
Right.
It could be a 3-6 month run,
right,
and still be valuable and still be worthy. Just like you mentioned with a match. Match doesn't have to go 35 minutes. It can go 10 to 15.
Right. And I think a lot of people have kind of gotten infatuated with the idea that Ospreay needs to win the title at Wembley. I'm open to that. If it makes sense, then that's fine. However, I just feel like right now, if Ospreay was not in the main event for the world title, I think I'm in a place right now he'd be okay with that, because sometimes you want that chase.
Yeah.
He's eventually going to get there. That's completely fine. I'm wanting to see what Swerve does with this title run. He deserves it. He busted his ass for over 2 years. He's earned it. I just feel like it might be kind of quick. Like you just mentioned, you don't necessarily need to have a 600-day title reign, but I think everybody's just infatuated with the idea of Ospreay winning in his home country, which is great. Yeah, it's fine. And AEW is really nice at doing that, and I always appreciate that. But I'm not going to be disappointed if he doesn't, and if Ospreay's doing something else where it makes more sense. Maybe he's wrestling Okada. Sign me up. Or, if Omega's available, sure. I think there's other options and venues, avenues to use Ospreay where it's just like, oh, well, if Ospreay doesn't win the title at All In, then what are we doing? I just feel like right now with Swerve, I think you saw this a little bit in his opening promo on Collision. Wasn't the biggest fan of it. Kind of just, I wrote in my review, kind of gave me just welcome to Monday Night Raw vibes a little bit, but I did appreciate him more opening up about his daughter. That was a nice touch. He's trying to show the human element of himself. I just think they need to have really defined dichotomy with the babyface and heels, just because, in AEW, everybody's cool, which, you want fans to get behind whoever they like. If you like whoever, that's fine, but they need to kind of build out that foundation. And we're going to find out tomorrow who Swerve's opponent is for Double or Nothing, and seems very logical to me, Stu. Christian Cage, that's your guy.
I think so. I think they'd be a wonderful opponent for Swerve.
And it with Swerve, especially his, I don't want to say it again, but you have to go 25 minutes to have a great match. Christian Cage, his brains too. Have you ever had a conversation with Christian?
I've chatted with him on a couple occasions.
I want to pick his brain just to see how he's so good at putting a match together. He just understands like the dark arts where you can do a lot without doing anything, and the way Swerve moves, I just feel like he in his brain could lay out something perfect. And there's obvious history that you could run back with Swerve and Nick Wayne. At Title Eliminator on Dynamite or Collision, and I think they would kill it. And I think if you give them 10, 15 minutes, that's all they would need, and it'd be great. Right. And Christian, everybody's gonna pop because he likes to call everybody's fathers dead and everything like that, but he's going to generate the proper heat where everyone's going to get behind Swerve. There's not going to be any half and half where everybody's going to cheer for Joe and Swerve and Joe and Hangman or whoever. Recreate that dichotomy, make Swerve that cool, sympathetic person. Maybe they could jump Prince Nana and get some heat. That'd be a very Christian Cagey thing to do because he's a weasel. That's what he's very good at it. I feel, and if anything, when you put Christian Cage in these title high profile title appearances, he kills it every time. And I know everybody kind of bemoans, we're gonna get Christian Cage and Omega at All Out, and guess what? They were great.
They were. They were, absolutely.
And Christian's layouts are even better when he's a heel.
Yes, I think you're right. So it should be a fun week of AEW. I say week. It's only going to be tomorrow night. I mentioned Rampage will come on after Dynamite tomorrow on TBS. No Collision this week because the NHL playoffs will be on TNT. So tomorrow is they've got to do some building tomorrow. And I think I have faith that they will. We will see what direction that will take. And so, yeah, there you go. He is Brian Zilem. Read everything he does on Pro Wrestling Torch. Follow him on X at Brian Zilem. Brian, man, I appreciate it. Had a blast. Enjoyed everything. Thanks for coming by, man.
Of course. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate it.